ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski says the newest part of the deal is a sign and trade sending Spencer Dinwiddie from the Nets to the Wizards. The Pacers and Spurs are also involved in that trade. The NFL Players Association is recommending that even vaccinated players undergo daily testing when they're at a team facility during training camp. Of the 65 positive tests around the league since camps opened, 32 are from players and staffers who have been vaccinated. Right-hander Max Scherzer makes his first Dodgers start tonight against the Astros. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts.
We're excited to see Max make his Dodger debut. I know we'll be focused on winning a ball game and just take good at bats, because I know that Max is gonna go out there and compete and bring energy, and I know our guys are gonna be there ready to support it. So put that together and to win a ball game.
We've got the Astros and Dodgers with coverage starting at 9 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Former Penn State President Graham Spanier is out of jail tonight after serving just under 2 months for endangering the welfare of children. At Penn State, Spanier had been given a report that former assistant football coach Jerry Sandusky had abused a boy on campus.
Hey, it's Greeny, and the moves in the NBA free agency period continue to come fast and furious. Has anyone made themselves a serious championship contender? I'll answer that question and more. It's Greeny, starting 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN+.
Isn't this a sports show?
Also, if you listen on the app, you get the X-rated Sirius XM coverage where they curse. You ever want to hear Kevin Harlan say, "Oh, he bleeping missed it"?
Almost entirely.
None of that's true. Except for somebody being able to listen on the app and website.
Marv Albert.
That is true.
Jordan Purdue, bleep yeah!
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Put the bleeping hammer down!
Rock chalk it the bleep up!
Take the show with you by listening on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app at 810WHB.com or by searching for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts.
What else are we missing? What else can we go to?
Oh, I'm trying to think of famous calls.
Yeah, me too. Do you believe in miracles? Holy bleep!
Dang it!
Is that yours?
Yeah!
This is Almost Entirely Sports on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Friends, I come bearing good news. Today, in St. Joseph, Missouri, year of our Lord 2021, we were blessed. We were blessed by manna from heaven that we have not been able to receive for quite a while now. We got a Steve Spagnuolo press conference. What else could you possibly need to get through your Wednesday evening, or I suppose if you're listening in podcast form, maybe your Thursday morning. What else could you ask for at any turn, anywhere in your life? If you have Steve Spagnuolo press conferences back on a regular basis once more, you have everything you need. That's how I'm feeling right now. That's the energy that I'm bringing today, because I knew I was going to be very interested in Spags whenever his press conference did come around. And to be honest, he didn't get every single topic that I was hoping to hear from him on, which bums me out a little bit. I wasn't out there today. I was just following along at home. But I got to say, even with a couple of topics like Juan Thornhill, Dan Sorensen, some stuff that I was hoping to hear about, there were still like at least half a dozen times when I seriously, watching the stream of the press conference, went, man, I'm so glad that Spags is back at a microphone. I'm so glad Spags is back at a podium. Because he's really smart. He doesn't take himself very seriously, but he takes the job seriously. And he can be self-deprecating. He's got a sense of humor. And he's not also super restrictive about what he tells you. I think that, Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid, I don't think are straight up liars at the podium. but oftentimes you ask a question, you watch them sidestep you. You know, I mean, it's just you can ask a question that may or may not actually get answered. And if they don't really want to answer it, they'll give you either a non-answer or a very limited partial answer.
They turn into Barry Sanders in his prime, just dodging guys in the backfield, making everybody look like fools, and then scoring touchdowns.
Even with like the enemy's presser from whatever that was, Monday, I think he talked. You'll get, hey, so how is, Darrell Williams looked out there? Well, you know what, man? Darrell's doing a hell of a job. He's out here working. He's grinding. He knows he's got work to do, but I've been, his efforts there every day. He's a great player, great kid, doing a hell of a job out here. All right. I mean, we didn't learn anything from that, right? Like it sounds good, and it's very coachy. But and Andy Reid does that sometimes. Well, both of those guys will also occasionally give you a nice nugget of information. But Spags is just, I feel like Spags is in the position where he has been to the top in the sport, winning Super Bowls as a defensive coordinator. And also he's been the head coach and it hasn't gone all that well. But now he is the very decorated defensive coordinator, but he doesn't have to be the top dog. He doesn't have to answer for everything. And so I imagine that makes him a little more just sort of go with the flow on some stuff. And I was very, very happy, genuinely, to have Spags back at the podium. Because also he has some answers to some questions that we've been asking. I don't think he has the answer of who's going to be the outside cornerback opposite Travarius Ward week 1. Because I don't think that decision has necessarily been made. In fact, based on what he said today, I've got a couple of guesses on some stuff. But the question that I've been asking that did get answered today is, hey, Spags, how do you feel about how you're going to use Chris Jones this year? And we actually have that now here today. So I'm excited about that, and we'll bring you that momentarily. A few other things that you heard Rudy Salazar already, Bears McFly, on the other side of the glass. If you want to get in touch with the show in any way, shape, or form, you can do it a variety of ways. I hate to do a super meta thing first out here, but Beards, is the TV channel that's currently up on your screen, like that's the one that usually works the best, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not working.
No.
There's nothing you can do about it. I understand that. I just wanted to double check because I was going to keep an eye on what was on that screen.
Nope. It's been doing that this week.
Yep.
Yeah, this one channel was the one that was sort of breaking through previously, and it doesn't. I mean, in fairness, there's maybe there's snow on the dish, or maybe it's raining.
Brutal weather day outside.
Yeah.
The wind's real blowing, raining really hard.
Lots of clouds.
A lot of weather going on out there.
All right. Sorry for the step out of the show there, but I just wanted to make sure. I was hoping to see the thing that was going to be on the TV there.
Yep, that's the good one.
What makes you feel better? The thing that I'm hoping to see will probably also not work because of internet issues.
And the app, yeah. It's a match made in the pits of hell. So with that being said, I don't remember what I was saying before that, other than we'll get to Spags in a second. We're all here. We're on until 9:30 tonight, because at 9:30 we hand it over to Sporting Kansas City coverage here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Sporting Kansas City at LAFC. So a late start, but Polito and Busio back in the mix, right, Rudy? I saw Vermees talking about it. It was on mute, but that it said underneath his name, Busio and Polito return. I don't know if they're starting or if
they've definitely returned. I knew that. I'm gonna be honest.
You've been busy today.
I don't have a clue. I'm gonna be honest. I don't have a clue.
Well, if you really want to know, you can listen at 9:30.
It would make sense that they're back. I'd be surprised if either played, considering they just played in the final.
That's the main thing. So Polito is apparently meeting them in LA today. This is according to Sean Goodwin of the Star. Busio back in the building. This was as of yesterday, and Polito will meet them in LA
that makes
today.
Sense, yeah.
So there's
that
that.
checks out.
I don't know how much they're going to play.
They could be available if it's a close game towards the end. It being a Western
Sure.
Conference opponent. I wouldn't be stunned if you saw Polito come in the 60th or 70th minute, but it would make sense that this would kind of be an off day for him. Just a chance to get back into the flow of things. They did send out Tyler Freeman, a local kid who signed a major, like a professional deal with Sporting, and is on his way to Germany. on loan.
I saw that
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Going to go play in Germany for the year, and Sporty has a chance to bring him back, so good for him.
And probably we're just going to do a 2.5-hour Sporting pregame show here, actually. I think is what we'll probably do. But anyway, that's at 9:30 tonight.
Venice, last thing, decided
Sure.
they're just going to sign all the American players. They haven't officially signed Busio yet, but they're getting Busio, Eric Palmer Brown, also a former Sporting Kansas City kid, and there's a third one who I forget. Taylor Twessman, I believe, a midfielder.
I think Taylor Twellman is on.
So here's the thing:
ESPN,
Taylor
right?
Twellman's on ESPN.
Yeah.
There's a midfielder whose name is Taylor.
His
Twessman.
name is Twaylor Twelsman.
And that-
Twaylor Talisman. You can, if you find the answer, you can just spit out that name whenever. I'm not that stressed about it. But that's at 9:30 tonight. At 9, we'll talk to Harold Kuntz of Fox4. He was out in St. Joe today. We'll talk to him about some of the stuff that he saw. Also, a couple injury things on the news today for the Chiefs. Come back to that in a second. At 8, even more Chiefs. Jordan Foote of Arrowhead Report will join us to talk about some of the things we've seen so far, some of the stuff we heard from the pressers today, and what he's found interesting in the last in these few days of padded practice. So Jordan at 8, Harold at 9, Sporting at 9:30. The injury front on a couple things here before we get to the Spag sound. I also at some point we have to talk about the Jeopardy thing. I don't know if have you guys seen the Jeopardy news?
No. Tanner
Yes, I did.
Tessman.
Tanner Tessman.
Yes.
Close enough.
Tanner Tessman.
Injury front here. Willie Gay left the field and went up the hill on his own today, leaving practice early. The Chiefs later told us he entered concussion protocol. I guess that's better. Like, it wasn't. He didn't get carted off or anything, so that's probably better than a knee or a groin or whatever. But really, I think every day for the last 4 or 5 practices the Chiefs have had, somebody with an impact has left early, and also maybe even more concerning today in the long run. Alex Okafor left with a hamstring, and that didn't even hit anybody's radar until after practice, so I don't think it got as much attention. But Okafor last year had a hamstring issue, I think it was week 1, and then eventually came back after missing some time and then suffered another hamstring injury later on. I was trying to find this for sure today. I vaguely remember, I think it was Matt Derrick who said that he thought he had that issue in each hamstring. I would not put money on if he had injuries on both hamstrings or if it was re-aggravation of the other one. The other one then ended up sending him to the IR for some time there. So Alex Okafor leaving today with a hamstring, probably the most sort of concerning, somewhat small injury Okafor could have left with, because that was such a big issue last year. And if that starts flaring up again in training camp today, it doesn't bode incredibly well. Hopefully it was a little tiny thing and they pulled him early, but if it ends up being a bigger issue long term, that would be concerning.
He's a guy who's had a lot of injury problems.
Yep.
Because I know he tore his, a completely unrelated injury, but tore his pec right his first year, yeah.
Yep, first
Which
year in Kansas
obviously
City, yeah.
has nothing obviously to do with your groin, but it's just the trend of, Alex Okafor is going to miss time at some point this year. And maybe this isn't the issue, right? Maybe he's back week 1. But you can almost guarantee that he's going to miss like a handful of games.
And
because that's just kind of what happens.
Your hope is with all these guys out there that somebody will be able to play, that you'll have somebody with some production. We'll hear from Taco Charlton a little bit as well. He spoke today, and he also is not fully 100%. As a spoiler alert for the audio that we'll play a little bit later on. So there are some questions for the Chiefs defensive line to have to answer for, and we'll unpack some of that as we go. The other thing I was going to say is if you want to get in touch with the show, you can do it a variety of places, including on our video feeds. You can watch at twitch.tv/sportsradio810, also our Facebook and our YouTube channels. You just search for Sports Radio 810. You'll find it in any of those places. It's also the best place to leave a comment. We don't take calls. We have a text line, but I don't really check it. The best place to get in touch with us is on the Twitch, is on the Facebook, and is on the YouTube. So if you want to do that, that would be my suggestion. Like the Claude on Twitch, who said at the beginning of the show, and I said friends. He said, Josh called me a friend. No takesies, backsies. S. Wallaby, as long as the Spags sound clips come with the Brisco impression. We'll see. We'll see. If we get to the end of the hour and all of a sudden I don't know what time it is, maybe it'll come out. I don't know. We'll find out. But let's go to some of the Spags audio. We've seen a variety of guys who have made an impact over camp so far. I think Willie Gay is probably the main guy that has really jumped to the front. But, again, he leaves with a concussion issue today. And I want to start with the cornerbacks. So, Beards, number 3. Because that's been the main thing I was excited to hear about from Spags, is in this secondary, what the plan is going to be. And starting here with L'Jarius Sneed. Obviously, let me give you a quick backstory on what his year looked like last year. So he's a 4th-round pick out of a small school. He works his way through camp. Bashad Breeland is suspended to start the season, so Sneed gets some significant outside playing time. He plays great. He ends up being a turnover machine. It's wonderful. Then he breaks his collarbone. He leaves. He comes back after several weeks in the collarbone rehab.
Then he broke it, essentially making. I believe he caught the ball, but essentially going to pick off a pass.
Another pass.
He probably dropped because his collarbone broke when he hit the ground.
Right.
Understandable.
And so it's a relative, I think it was like an 8-week process or so for him to get back healthy. Whenever he got back, he started playing in the slot because Breeland was back at that point, and that, makes enough sense. But in the slot, he was excellent, not just as a slot coverage guy, but also a few times, and maybe I've overstated the importance of this, I just think it's fun, honestly. He ends up being a weapon that can blitz out of the slot, and he certainly has the skill set to do some stuff deeper back on the field as well. He did some of that in college, and so he's been all over the place, but playing all of those positions is really hard. It's not just the value of being good in one of those spots, it's the value of being good in all of those spots and being able to bounce around. So Spags today talked a little bit about Sneed. He was asked how he's bounced from the inside to the outside and what the plan's going to be for him this season.
Listen, that's a challenging thing that I'll start with L'Jarius, what he's doing, to play inside most downs, and all of a sudden when we change a package, he's outside. But he's handled it real well. If you guys remember last year, he was outside at the beginning, got hurt. When we brought him back, we wanted to get the best 11. That was hard, learning nickel in the middle. But he's doing an excellent job. The whole group, obviously, is led by Tyron, and he keeps those guys together. I really like watching the guys that haven't been here before, Mike, and I know DeAndre Baker's been here, but he hadn't been out there a lot because of the injury. So it's all coming together. It's going to take a while. We're early in the process, but happy with the way those guys are working.
So there's a little bit of the same story there from Spags, and the way they use Sneed is partially also talked about. You want the best 11, right? Getting the best 11 on the field is in part making sure you have guys that can play these other spots. And right now that leaves a little bit of a question mark on the outside. You right now, I like it when Sneed is on the outside and kicks into the slot in nickel, or really in any sub package that has at least 5 defensive backs on the field. But what do you do with the outside cornerback spot that is currently seeming to be between DeAndre Baker, who didn't practice today, Mike Hughes, who they traded for from the Vikings, Rashad Fenton there as well. Here's what Spags had to say about the outside cornerback battle that's currently going on during camp.
It's probably a good way to say it right now, and it is good competition right now. Now, DeAndre wasn't out there today, but all 3 of those guys are working hard. Rashad takes on the added responsibility of having to play some nickel. The other 2 guys stay out there the whole time, but pleased right now with those 3 guys are doing.
I'm glad that he's happy with those 3 guys, and it's August 4th, so you don't need a starter out of that group yet. But at this point, you want to have a solution for that once the season comes around. That's the thing at this point for me. I am not terribly optimistic about Mike Hughes. I'm a little more optimistic about DeAndre Baker. I'm maybe somewhere in between on Rashad Fenton. I know he can be on the field and not be a problem based on what he's done so far in his career with the Chiefs. So I think that they will probably find a guy who you'll get good, competent play out of opposite Charvarius Ward, theoretically with Sneed being in the slot there. I think that is a head above water cornerback group, but not necessarily a strength of the team sort of cornerback group. One other thing, particularly for the cornerbacks, is an undrafted free agent, Devin Key. He's been an interesting story. He's popped up a few times. I saw a little hype whenever the Chiefs brought him in. Again, he didn't get drafted, but Sam McDowell on the program today said he thinks he's going to be a surprise roster spot grabber, which probably would come at the cost of Bo Pete Keys' roster spot. I don't know that for a fact or anything, but probably a competition down there unless Key really leaps up the depth chart. And Spags was asked today what he thinks about Devin Key, the undrafted free agent rookie out of Western Kentucky.
Devin Key is, I think, Brett Veach and his guys did an excellent job identifying him. He's an undrafted free agent. But I think he's an instinctive guy. He's in tune to everything. We got him playing a couple of spots just to find out what he's all about. And really impressed right now. We'll see what he does in a game. We preface all these comments, right, by the fact that we can't do anything live, really, and it's not a game. But right now, I think he's doing a nice job.
The one thing there that I think is a little interesting is whenever he says good find, trying him in some different spots, seeing what he can do, finding his best position or whatever. It reminds me a little bit, don't connect this dot the whole way, but it reminds me a little bit of where they were probably at with Snead this time last year, especially with even less going on in terms of OTAs, off-season activity, all of that stuff. So I am intrigued by that, and Spags got asked about him, so he didn't go out of his way to say, really, I think everybody here sucks except for Devin Key. But as a name to keep in mind is maybe somebody who could end up making that roster spot. I don't hate it. I'm not mad at it.
Every year, there's going to be guys who, like every year, an undrafted free agent's essentially going to make the roster. Like, the question is always like who it's going to be. There's never. It's like my guess is if you look at every NFL team's roster every year, there's going to be a rookie undrafted free agent because guys just get like guys get misjudged, overlooked for whatever the reason may be.
They find a scheme that uses them really well.
Yeah, like the countless reasons. Devin Key seems like the guy, and even goes even before training camp, like where we've seen Kent talk about him, right? And funny enough, a couple like I saw people who I follow, who I know from Kentucky, quote tweet a Nate Taylor tweet, which just threw me off for a second because I've never seen them quote Nate Taylor,
right?
But it's because it was about Devin Key because it's obviously the Western Kentucky connection. There's been enough talk like from media and then just seeing obviously now from Spags, and obviously he's asked about it, but he's asked about it because he's getting reps in spots maybe we didn't like people didn't necessarily expect. He's getting run with with some of the starters, with some of the the second teams. Like he's a guy who seems like he's going to be this year's undrafted free agent, and you need to find guys like that. Like those guys matter going forward. That's how you stay. That's how the salary cap stays fake, right? The salary cap can be fake when you have guys like Devin Key not only make the team, but become good players. Right? Like when L'Jarius Sneed all of a sudden becomes a playmaking corner, the cap becomes a little bit more fake.
Yeah.
It's when you can't find those people, and now all of a sudden the cap is like a real thing because you have to spend money to get good players.
Right.
And eventually you just hit a wall there. So like guy, and his versatility seems to be like a very defensive back versatility seems like a big thing for Spags. Like whether it's even like Tyrann Mathieu is a safety, obviously, but like he plays like a little. There are times where he's almost essentially lined up where a linebacker would line up. There are times where he's lined up where a corner was lined up. Sorensen does that. L'Jarius Sneed does that. Rashad Fenton, even to a degree, does that with the inside-outside. Like he likes versatile defensive backs.
Who was the guy whenever Spags got to town? There was a corner. This is not me forgetting his name. This is me leading to the payoff of remembering this guy if anyone's forgotten. There was a cornerback.
Patrick Peterson.
It was not Patrick Peterson. There was a cornerback who got to Kansas City in a pretty noteworthy trade, who ended up playing, I think he played maybe a little bit of outside, but he ended up being he was like a shutdown. He might have been the best slot corner in the league in Bob Sutton's defense. And then Spags gets to town, and all of a sudden, this dude late in the season, the second half of the season, was basically fully playing safety.
I gotcha.
You could say Fuller playing safety.
Marcus Peters.
Not Marcus Peters either. No, but Kendall
Darrelle Revis.
No, not Darrelle Revis
Kyle
either.
Fuller. It was Kyle Fuller.
It was not Kyle Fuller. It was Kendall Fuller.
Forgot about his twin.
Darrell
They're not
Revis
twins.
beards made
not
me
a bad
remember
pull,
that
yeah.
he was on this team for like 6 weeks.
You know what I'm never going to forget about Darrell Revis? It's when he knocked a ball right into Marcus Mariota's hands after Marcus Mariota threw a ball, and then Marcus Mariota scored a touchdown.
That was Darrell Revis?
Yeah.
Oh, man,
I'm
I
like
forgot that
99% sure it was
completely.
Darrell Revis. Because it was like, wow, Darrell Revis made a great play, and the Chiefs' luck is the ball just went right back to Marcus Mariota. That's when I was fully convinced the Chiefs were just cursed, because Marcus Mariota threw a touchdown pass to himself.
One of you should have said that I was talking about Kendall Jenner. When I was talking
Kylie.
about Kendall Fuller.
Kylie Jenner,
Would have been funny.
Kim Kardashian.
You guys
What's
think
Lamar Odom up to?
you think
about to say Lamar Odom.
you guys think Darrell Revis is going to go into the Hall of Fame as a Chief?
Absolutely. He's got a touchdown pass.
Oh, I said 6 weeks. He played 5 games with the Chiefs.
But a playoff?
Whoa.
5 regular season and a
6!
playoff?
Yes! 5-1!
Did the Chiefs have a bye that week? A first-round bye? Because maybe it's 7 weeks with 6 games?
6 games.
I don't know.
I think he got here on a Wednesday. I think that trade happened on a Wednesday because it was Wet Wild Wacky Wednesday.
Wow, I was going to ask why you would remember that, but I think you're right because you said that. He had such a weird path around the league. So he spent, the first 6 years with the Jets, and 1 year in Tampa, the 2013
I forgot about
Bucks.
Tampa.
Yeah, of course you did.
Because I was going to say...
Because he played at Tampa for 2013.
When you said 1 year, I was going to say New England. Because wasn't he a Patriot?
That was the next year.
I just was thinking... I forgot about Tampa. I thought he went from New York to
It was New
England.
York, 1 year in Tampa, 1 year in New England,
Back
2
to New
years
York?
back to the Jets
Yeah.
for 2 years, and then a little bit with the Chiefs.
Was that it?
And then he retired. Quick, don't think too hard. Who were the 2 quarterbacks that started games for the 2013 Tampa Bay Buccaneers when Darrell Revis was there?
Mike Glennon.
1. He started 13.
And Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Nope.
3
games started by a quarterback who went 0-3 for the Bucs that year.
Bruce Gradkowski?
Great name, not the right answer though.
Ah.
Is that too early for Jameis?
Yep.
Yeah.
Dang.
Jameis was 2014, I think. 2015.
This Tampa Bay
Mike
Buccaneers
Glennon.
quarterback was a first-round draft pick.
Oh,
Tom
man.
Brady.
No.
Mike Glennon and
Extremely no,
former
Beard.
first-round
No for almost
Draft
every reason. He did not win a game. He was a first-round draft pick, and he played for the Bucs in 2013.
Can you give me a college?
It would end the game.
I don't know, man.
I can give you a conference. He's a
Okay.
Big 12
Yeah, yeah,
quarterback.
yeah. A Big 12.
First-round draft pick.
Oh.
17th overall.
Hold up. No. Well, maybe. Was it Blaine
2013.
Gabbert?
Nope.
Ah.
Even closer to home.
Todd Reese.
Not quite that close, but pretty near. I am GD tired of all of this Josh Freeman erasure that is
Heck
going on in the
yes.
studio right now.
Man, I forgot
K-State
about
legend.
Josh Freeman.
K-State legend
And you'd
Josh
have-
Freeman.
You're right. If you would have said K-State, I would have noticed.
That
Josh
would have
Freeman.
ended it. I wanted to make
Yeah.
you try for it.
I might have said Colin Klein first, but I just because I probably would have remembered him first. But
His
yeah.
career really did not. He was the
Oof,
17th overall pick, and the Bucs. I mean, he didn't have a second contract with them. Like it was, and they went 10-6 in his second year. He started all 16 games in 2010.
My biggest Josh Freeman memory, and
What?
it's so weird, is back when Jim Rome used to have a TV show on ESPN, and just Josh Freeman was a guest once. And so anytime I think of Josh Freeman, or maybe it was on ESPN. I don't remember what channel this show was on. I feel like it was, but I just always every time I think of Josh Freeman, I just remember seeing him on the Jim Rome this 1 hour TV show that he did. It's just a very weird memory.
Super weird.
Very quickly, Ice Pyro.
There's no rush. We just spent 5 minutes talking about Darrell Revis and Josh Freeman. We take all the time we
Well,
need, Beards.
speaking of Darrell Revis, Ice Pyro asked if Akon City is on Revis Island.
Ooh. I think that how you can have can't you have like a sister city,
Mm-hmm.
I think Revis Island and Akon is Akon City, did we decide? I think it should be called Akonville.
I said Akonville.
I think Akon City and Revis Island are like sister cities,
Mm-hmm.
They've got a great relationship and they're on the same page.
I believe Kansas City has 2 sister cities. I believe one of them is in South Korea and the other is in Sweden or one of those countries.
Really? How about this? Kansas City has 13 sister cities.
Wow. I was saying I know 2 of them.
This is according to kcparks.org.
Seville.
More Spags audio in a minute.
Seville.
13 sister cities. There's that one in Spain, one in Japan, one in Mexico, one in Sierra Leone, one in Taiwan, one in China, one in Mexico, one in Germany, Nigeria, Tanzania, Mexico again, Israel, and France. Do you guys this is a break Google thing if we need to Google it. Do you know what makes a sister city? Do you just have to both agree?
I think so. Yeah. I think it's just simple. You both agree. You're just like,
Hold
hey.
on, Rudy. I'm sorry to cut you off, but if you look over your shoulder, you're going to see Beard's making a real dumb face, which means he's got a real dumb joke about to...
When a mommy city and a daddy city.
What? Keep going.
Okay, so but who's the mommy and daddy city here? Because they're sisters.
Wow, great point.
Probably Chicago.
I don't like that.
So, there is the Sister City Association of Kansas City, which coordinates relationships between Kansas City and its 13 sisters on 4 continents.
It's a big family. This is a TLC show waiting to happen.
It's very good.
13 sister cities and
sister
counting.
city, county,
I
or
guess
state
14.
relationship is a broad-based, long-term partnership between 2 communities and 2 countries. Relationship is officially recognized after the highest elected or appointed official from both communities sign off on an agreement to become sister cities. City may have any number of sister cities with community involvement ranging from a half dozen to hundreds of volunteers.
I still don't fully know what the purpose of it is.
So
but that,
I think our first sister city was Seville, Spain.
All right, here is your last bit of trivia. Then we'll take a break and come back with more Spags.
I was pretty sure about, but now that I see that it's the capital of the southern Spain's Andalusia region. That's where my family's from. My family comes from the Andalusian region.
What? Really?
Yeah, it's a very southern part of Spain.
According to Quora, St. Petersburg, presumably Florida? That's St. Pete? It's spelled out, so maybe not. 78 sister cities.
Whew. So, we have a...
Maybe it's the Russia St. Petersburg. We'll see.
Kurashiki, Japan. So, they donated a Japanese tea room to Kansas City's Luce Park in July 2006.
That's very pleasant.
Yeah. I'm on kcsistercities.org and then got, little information.
This is, I mean, absolutely no way of knowing this is where this show is going to end up today. Nope. St. Pete, Florida has... Hold on. St. Pete, Florida has a sister city relationship with Takamatsu, Japan, Isla Mujeres, Mexico, a friendship city relationship with Figueres, Spain.
Friendship city.
And they're also sister cities, St. Pete, Florida, with St. Petersburg, Russia. And that is nobody tried very hard. You know what? We have the same name. Isn't that cool? We should be friends. And they were like, yeah, okay, fine. And I guess, good for them.
Our most recent one is Yan'an in China. That was established in 2017. So not that long ago.
Let's get a new sister city.
Yeah. Kansas City journalist Edgar Snow was the first Western journalist to give a full account of the Long March in Chinese history, which was an event back in 1935. So, that's the relationship.
Mayor Quentin Lucas, if you can hear me right now, I know you can. I think Kansas City needs a new sister city. Are you ready to know what the correct answer is? Because I do have it.
Is it Aconville?
It's not Aconville, although, boy, I do like that very much.
Is it Sealand?
Also would be very good. That's a sister country. Kansas City should establish a sister city relationship with White House, Texas, where Patrick Mahomes is from.
I would say that's already been established.
I think that should be formalized.
Not formally, but yeah.
I think that should be signed into law.
Understandable.
I also don't know if the mayor can do anything about that. Maybe it's just .org.
If the mayor and then the mayor of why am I drawing a mind blank now where Patrick Mahomes is from?
White House, Texas,
yes.
yeah.
If they have to agree on it, but
Tyler, Texas. He went to college at White House. We have to make a decision here. Is because he went to college at White House. He was born in Tyler.
I think Tyler's where he still probably considers home, though, right?
I'm going
Like,
to text Patrick
that's
Mahomes.
I've
the
heard him say
question.
Tyler more than I have White House.
Yeah,
Beards-
wherever he goes in the offseason, like when he goes to visit
call his
family.
dad.
That's a
the
great point.
question.
I'll call his dad.
You do have his phone number
I do
probably
have his
for
dad.
real, right?
Yeah.
All right, Beards, call Pat Mahomes Sr., ask him which sister city Kansas City needs to establish. Is it White House? Is it Tyler? Is it wherever Texas Tech plays, which is currently over here outside of my brain? Please, Rudy, help me.
Wait, what?
The city that Texas Tech
Lubbock.
plays. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I'm looking up sister cities of like Olathe over in the park. And
Well, you keep doing that. We'll figure out what Kansas City's sister city is, and also whenever we come back, we'll play some more audio from Steve Spagnuolo. That's next.
Want more Almost Entirely Sports? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook page. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco
I don't think my pool noodles will reach from Sealand to Aconville.
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I'm 26 years old. Everyone older than me thinks I'm a child, but I'm old enough now that there are enough people younger than me that I'm older than. It's a whole deal. Anyway, I mentioned that only because during the commercial break, I popped open Amazon and Googled wearable, or I didn't Google. I went to Amazon. God, giant internet corporations own our terminology now. That's kind of dark. Anyway, I went to Amazon and I searched wearable lumbar support. That's how old I am. These chairs just simply don't have any.
No.
I guess if I
Why
move
go
all the
steal
way,
Ben's chair?
I'm not gonna go steal Ben's chair. And then also
There's
like
another chair in there.
they rock backwards in a way that like I'm just always I feel like I'm riding a skateboard during the entire show.
That's why I don't use that chair when I'm
can,
doing the video.
you can lock
Beards. This
No,
one you
you
cannot
can't.
actually.
It doesn't
it.
do
That one
anything.
not- I said mine does.
Yeah, I know. This one used to. I
Also, Rudy, your chair's crooked.
I mean, it is crooked, but like it does lock to where I can't like lean it back.
this one is
that
off center
one,
enough right
yes,
now that
it's-
it no longer
here's-
locks in place.
I'm not surprised it's broken, but just in theory,
maybe.
they can.
All right, I did it, and also it doesn't really lock very well, and then it does
No.
tilt. So I just keep it as is.
For
But
sure.
anyway, what I just need, because whenever I'm leaning back, whether the chair leans backwards, then I lean forward, and I'm just fully just hunching over in a way that I know is not good for me. But if I want to sit up straight, I sit on the very, very end of it, and I may as well be doing the show on a bar stool, and that's not what I want to be doing. So I think I need to get. I was watching a GQ 10 Essentials video, which those videos are absolutely just crack to me. I don't know why. But Chris Paul did one a while back, and he has like a lumbar support roll thing that you can just like, it's got like an elastic band that you can just pull over himself and then just put it so it just sits behind him. So if you're on a plane or something, that thing seems like it would be incredible. But we sit in these chairs a lot, and I just need to make sure I keep my shoulders back. That would do it, I think. I don't know if it's necessarily even the lumbar support. I just need to get like realigned better. And this chair is not built for spinal realignment. This chair is built for conference realignment.
I run into the problem quite a bit of like being too tall almost for desks, where like like my back will hurt after just like depending on the desk. Like this one, I'm actually usually okay with. It's at a good height, but like the one in our office, if I sit there for longer because it's a little too low, but
it's also not a desk.
Well, fair, but like it's a table,
Yes.
and so like it's just I'm at a height that like it's at a bad height that doesn't work with me.
Yeah.
That it ends up causing like a lot of pain in my shoulders. So I don't sit there often anymore.
We just got as old as any radio show in America so fast.
I also like type weird where like my left arm's like out almost like this. My right arm's like here. I have no idea.
Anyway,
It's a weird little thing I do.
I've found the firm density lumbar support roll. Now they have it like using that strap around the back of a chair, but these chairs are also very wide. I think I just wear it. I just pop it back there behind. I feel like that would be the best way to do it. Of course, when it will become really just a thing for all of us to enjoy is whenever I get up to go to the bathroom during a commercial break or something, and I walk out of here like a weird turtle or something with a shell on my back.
I mean, that would be the weirdest thing you've worn.
That's true.
Not even close.
That is absolutely true. Let's go back to Spags here because I was just very glad to hear from him today. And we talked about the defensive backfield a little bit, but the defensive line also super duper interesting, especially as you're seeing how they're changing their usage of Chris Jones and even what they're doing differently across the defensive line in a couple of places. Spags talked about Jones here today. He was asked if he feels like he's closer to deciding and figuring out how they're going to use Chris Jones in 2021.
When we think or know they're going to run it, we're going to try to have the most stout guys out there we can. That doesn't always work out that way. But Chris is going to have to play multiple spots, just the way it is. We have that. You know, Turk's going to have to do the same. Mike Dana's probably going to have to do the same thing. So the more flexible we can be, especially with big guys, the better off we'll be. Now, our defense has quite a bit of volume. And so there's a challenge in learning 2 spots, but I think Chris has handled it pretty well to this point.
I think that's super interesting for several reasons. One, most of our Chris Jones talk has been about him at defensive end, but it's worth remembering he will be playing defensive tackle plenty. When they think they're going to run, we want to have the most stout guys out there. Decoding that, in running situations, Chris Jones is a defensive tackle. In passing situations, he's a defensive end, and then you can bring in, then Derek Nottie comes off the field. Let's say Jaron Reed is at D tackle 3 downs, right? All 3 downs. Maybe it's Reed or maybe Reed is the guy that comes in whenever Jones moves over. You can have Chris Jones and Derek Nottie in the middle on 1st and 2nd down. Then Chris Jones moves to end, and then Reed comes in. Or maybe maybe Jones stays at D tackle and brings in Taco Charlton at edge, and it's Jones and Nottie in the middle. Or if it's in some of these passing situations, you put Jones and Reed in the middle, and you bring Taco and Frank Clark on the edges. Like, you have all of these different ways that you can go about it. Chris Jones is not more stout than Derek Nottie, but I think you probably want to have him be able to be flexible. You also, though, we've talked a lot about him as a defensive end on 1st and 2nd down, where he's a stout defensive end who can help hold the edge. So I think you're going to see a lot of different varieties of ways that it all comes together. And I think in all likelihood, you go Jones and Clark at the edges in your 1st and 10s, probably. But, and then you can have Jones and Reed rushing the passer together inside in obvious passing situations, I would think. But also, you want a stout guy in the middle. Chris Jones can play the middle on running situations still, even though he's lost some weight too. So I think that whole thing is interesting because I don't think it really gives an answer, but I do think it shows where Spags' head is at. But then you hear, not only is Jones going to be playing multiple spots, so is Tershawn Wharton, who we've talked about this briefly with Seth a couple times, I think. Seth really likes the idea of Wharton moving around. He thinks he has the quickness to do it at the edge some. And then Mike Dana, in obvious passing situations, I think it was a small handful of times last year, but I believe he has moved inside to rush from a DT spot, and maybe you've got speedier guys on the edges then. So, and also mentioning the volume of the defense, that you've got a lot to learn and everything, I just think it's going to be super interesting to see how Jones gets used and really how that whole defensive line comes together.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is going to be where, to a degree, we kind of, we know where Frank Clark's going to line up. We kind of know what Jaron Reed's role is. We know what Derek Nottie's role is. So much of how much those guys play, I mean, Frank Clark obviously is going to be out there every snap, but the rest of them, I think so much of their snap count will come down to where is the best matchup for Chris Jones in that particular game. I think a large part of this is finding out where is the biggest matchup problem for Chris Jones. If it's a game where he is just working the right guard, you'll probably see him get more snaps over the right guard. If he's working the tackle. So I think that's every game, which honestly it just makes the defense that much more unpredictable and makes it harder to prepare. I guess as an offense, you kind of know where your weak link is on the offensive line. You can kind of make the assumption Chris Jones will probably be here, but also Chris Jones is good enough that if the right tackle is the weak link and you really start putting an extra tight end to help double team or whatever, you just slide Chris Jones inside, and now all of a sudden he's a menace, or vice versa, right? Because he's just that good. But it provides so much just randomness to the defensive line that is going to make it hard for offenses to really prepare for. And we've talked about it along, the havoc that a defensive lineman can cause, right? Just and just especially and it's mostly from the interior, and obviously Chris Jones is going to play more outside, but it's fun. I think it's going to be fun seeing just him move around all over the place and just the havoc that he can cause.
And I think the matchup specific point is such an important one where, again, I think I talked myself in a full circle where I had Chris Jones playing 4 different spots on 4 different downs. Yeah. And
you might see that, though, to be fair. There might be drives where Chris Jones, where the Chiefs get a 3 and out, and Chris Jones is in 3 distinct different spots doing different things all 3 plays.
I think because of the matchups, that flexibility means that he will spend time everywhere in every situation over the course of this season. Yeah. There will be times where you say, okay, well, I think it makes the most sense in a running situation here where Jaron Reed and Derek Nottie are in the middle and Clark and Jones are on the edges. And then you will see Taco Charlton at the edge or Mike Dane at the edge and Chris Jones back in the middle. And you go, okay, well, that's not – I don't think they're going to have a cookie-cutter situation for much of anything. I think we're going to see where Jones starts and where he moves is going to be somewhat matchup dependent. And that's an advantage whenever it's talking about Chris Jones. So I do think that's super interesting.
And then as the game goes, if you find a spot where he is clearly just essentially playing in an all-pro look,
feasting,
it's just
leave him.
My guess is they'll every now and then maybe you change it up to mix it up. But, from there on, you might see the second half, 75% of his snaps come in one spot if he is just destroying, that center, that guard, that tackle.
Ice Pyro on Twitch said, Chris Jones at linebacker win. He will drop into coverage. I will not say that he'll play linebacker. Chris Jones will drop into coverage because, we've seen that a thanny bit here and there in the past.
He also might play safety. Who knows? The guy wants to play everything.
We might see him with one of the outside corner spots. Spags also talked more about the defensive line altogether. Didn't even mention Colin Saunders. I saw somebody mention that on Twitch as well.
He's in a weird spot.
He is in a strange spot, but he was hurt last year, and maybe a little more athleticism in the middle of that defensive line. Maybe he even finds a spot. But here's Steve Spagnuolo when he was asked about how he feels about the depth across the defensive line.
The D-line is the hardest one for me because of the way we practice, right? All teams have to do that. Now today, we got after it a little bit. I haven't seen the film. But listen, in all defenses, ours included, it all begins up front. I think the more solid you can be up there, the more depth you can be there, the better off you're going to be as a defense, I think. Coach Reed says it all the time. It's about the bigs, and it'll be about the bigs there. I'm glad we got the guys we got, Jay Reed, the whole crew. They're working. I need to watch the film again. There were some things I weren't real happy about, so I'm hesitating here, but I'll know when I watch the tape.
That is a quintessential Spags clip. He gives you a little bit, and he gives you a little more. I'm hesitating because I wasn't fully happy with some things today. And also admits, it's harder to judge defensive linemen in training camp because you don't practice the same way your defensive backs do. And so that's something where I'm going to be really interested to see how your Tershawn Whartons and Colin Saunders play in the preseason. And then ultimately, as the season goes on, I'm going to be prepared to be able to ask Spags, during the regular season, hey, in training camp, you said it's hard to judge your defensive linemen because you practice differently. Once they're 4 games into the season, how are you looking now? And I think that's going to be a really interesting, evolving thing to keep an eye on with this entire defense. We have to take a break here at the end of the hour, but whenever we come back, we'll talk to Jordan Foote, the deputy editor of the one and only ArrowheadReport.com, and we'll talk a ton of defense, I'm sure. Also, I know he's pretty excited about how the Chiefs' offensive line is shaping up. He also has some Noah Gray opinions, so we'll talk about a whole bunch of the rookies, a whole bunch of Chiefs defensive things, and I don't know, maybe we'll ask if he knows which city he thinks Kansas City should become sister cities with. How many times in a row can I say the word city? Will I slip up at any point to cause an FCC violation? Find out next.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB. SportsCenter.
I'm Doug Brown. That NBA trade sending Russell Westbrook to the Lakers has now expanded to become a 5-team deal. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reports the Wizards will get Spencer Dinwiddie on a sign-and-trade with the Nets. He'll get 3 years and $60 million. The Pacers and Spurs are now also included in this deal. LaMarcus Aldridge is considering a comeback. He retired from the Nets in April with heart concerns, but will now have conversations with teams in the coming weeks. He'd also still need medical clearance. When the Cowboys play the Steelers tomorrow night in the Hall of Fame preseason game, quarterback Dak Prescott and 15 other Cowboys players won't be there. Prescott is still rehabbing from a shoulder strain. ESPN's Marcus Spears.
I'm not overly concerned. I'll be concerned if we get to week 1 and then there's still talk about Dak needing some rest. That's when I'll be concerned. But right now, this much time out, no concern whatsoever because of Dak's makeup more than anything.
Marcus Spears on Get Up. The Raiders signed free agent defensive lineman Gerald McCoy. He's a 6-time Pro Bowler. He played for the Cowboys last year. Baseball finals today. The A's beat the Padres 5-4 on a Matt Olson 2-run walk-off double in the 10th. The Reds beat the Twins 6-5. Tyler Stevenson with a home run. He drives in 2. Brewers beat the Pirates 4-2. Rowdy Tellez with a pinch 3-run homer in the 7th. And the Rays beat the Mariners 4-3 in Tampa.
Hey, it's Greeny, and the moves in the NBA free agency period continue to come fast and furious. Has anyone made themselves a serious championship contender? I'll answer that question and more. It's Greeny, starting 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN+.
You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports
I hate Nick Bolton, and I hate him because he's a Missouri Tiger.
with Joshua Brisco. I hate Nick Bolton. On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Beard, you could have spent more time fixing the phones this segment and less time picking liners that actively make people hostile towards me.
I mean, that worked towards him.
I don't know what you're talking about.
If it'll help the radio show, you know he's not going to do it.
Efforting to get Jordan Foote on the line. If Jordan is listening right now, Jordan, it's not you, it's Beards.
Yeah.
Beard says the phone's not currently dialing out, so he's running a reset on
Brian
it.
Haney situation
But I
all
think it
over
might be a
again.
Brian Haney situation. Yeah, I think this might be I had the wrong number. I dialed 14 times. You know, wow, what a rude man Brian Haney is. All things that Beard's told us, you know, and blamed on Brian instead of ever actually just coming to terms with himself and taking some responsibility. You know, just for once, Beards.
Just once.
It does appear that would you like to defend yourself at any point?
No, I unplugged the phone and plugged it back in, and now it works. Technical wizardry.
It's just too bad that you had to do that as you were coming back and not, you know, earlier in the
Listen,
earlier in
Beard's
the
waiting
I
until
don't-
30
I don't-
seconds
9-minute
before
break.
the...
I don't
that I forced
like-
upon you.
I
Beards
don't
waits
like
until 30
letting
seconds.
hosts or letting guests sit on hold for like 4 minutes. So I usually
No,
call them during Sports
I
Center.
think that's the right
Give them a
move.
little bit less time.
Sure.
Then the phone wasn't dialing out. So then I had to, you know, try again on a different line, then unplug it and plug it back in. It works now.
Yeah, take out the cartridge, blowing it, put the cartridge back in.
Basically, yeah, just smack it really hard.
Someone would try to fix you that way.
I mean, Rebecca does.
I don't want to get any deeper into that because the only two ways it either becomes making fun of something that's not funny or it becomes gross. Those are the only
Or
two
both.
paths.
Or both.
That's true.
There's
Those
three paths.
Those are the only two paths that I
Or
see
hey,
from your job.
or hey, you know, if a
He
listener's
got
listening,
traded
if
to
a
the Braves,
listener's
actually.
listening and that's their thing, I'm not here to judge. So there's 4 paths.
It would be gross for me in this situation. What an intro for Jordan Foote. You can follow him on Twitter at Footnoted. He's the deputy editor of ArrowheadReport.com. You can read all of his work there. Also, the host of the Ref and the Kicker Chiefs podcast. You can get that wherever you get your podcasts. Jordan, is that the worst introduction, not only that you've ever gotten, but that anyone has ever done in all of radio?
2 things. First, it seems like every time I come on, there's some weird, like, technical mishap or a weird intro or both. So I think it's a me problem. And speaking of me problems, like, my phone's been acting really, really, really weird lately. So I was, like, panicking, thinking that I wasn't going to be able to connect. And then instead of yelling at Beards, you'd yell at me. So fortunately, Beards is able to take not just one, but all of it for the team today.
Beards is here for that, you know?
I do remember last time we had Jordan on.
Was it the Brian Haney day?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
but yes, because we essentially had the same type of intro where the segment started and Jordan had to sit here for 3 minutes listening to us pick her.
Yep.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
This is how Jordan segments go usually. There's usually a fight for a couple of minutes. Jordan hears, then we're like, hey, sorry, Jordan.
It's like when we have Alec Lewis on and there's like there's automobile noises in the background.
Yeah.
But when
just
it's
a
Jordan, just beforehand, where it's all fighting.
And that I think Jordan, you should take that as
And
a
bad
sign.
technology.
Well, I mean,
Bad
that's
phones.
Yeah, Jordan, I think you should take that as a sign of if not respect per se, but of you know being a part of the team. Because if somebody that I was trying to impress or something was on the line, I probably would have just tried to be professional all the way to this point. But now it's 8:06. We have talked zero Chiefs anything, and you know we're just all doing the show together. You're just a part of the show now.
I don't know what to say to that. I was going to say I appreciate the acknowledgement or sorry that I make you nervous, but apparently I don't. So I guess I'm just chopped liver.
No, it's much more. I was going to say a part of the family, but that's also not fair because I don't.
You don't want to be a part of this family.
I don't think that family is the right word. I don't think you want to be in this family.
Is Beards even a part of the family right now, Josh?
Reluctantly?
Yeah, I mean, I would say by in the most technical way, like You know, like whenever you're a kid and you want to pack up a suitcase and run away. I would like to do that to run away from Beards. I'd love to pack a little, like, Cars 2 suitcase with Lightning McQueen on it, put a PB&J and some snacks in there, and then run away into the forest. But, I got to come back by nightfall, so I think that's sort of where I'm at.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's talk some Chiefs.
Yeah, it's not up to you.
He's the captain now.
Jordan, let's talk some Chiefs here. If you don't mind, if you could just be a professional for once in your life. I don't know how much of the Spags presser you got to hear today, and how much of it you found as interesting as I did. But boy, I love hearing Steve Spagnuolo back at the podium. It makes me so happy. And he gave quite a few relatively interesting things, talking about how not just Chris Jones, but also Tershawn Wharton and Mike Dana are going to have to play multiple spots, and how L'Jarius Sneed is doing, kind of bouncing outside and inside, and seeing Mike Hughes and DeAndre Baker and Rashad Fenton all kind of fighting for that outside cornerback spot. If you heard those or just heard me summarize them as a radio professional would, any of those things catch your eye as being the most exciting or interesting thing from Spags today?
Yeah, man. I think along the defensive line, the Tershawn Wharton bit kind of jumps out. Really a guy that he's significantly undersized for an interior lineman. He's like, I think, 260 pounds-ish. Like sometimes I think he might play a bit lower than that. I think he's listed like 256, something like that. So either way, for a guy on the inside, Chris Jones mentioned he played at, 310 last season, which I don't 100% buy. He just must wear it pretty well, I guess. But Tershawn Wharton just has a great first step. He's a really good athlete. His bend on the outside, I think Seth Kaiser's mentioned that, is not worrisome, but something that he's going to have to work on. So having the opportunity to work in potentially on the outside, play a few different spots, it's kind of encapsulates the defensive end picture in a nutshell, in that they don't have a set concrete, this guy's going to do this guy's going to come in on this down. Earlier in the offseason, it seemed Mike Dana's going to be down 1 and 2. Tucker Charlton's going to be down 3 and potentially 4, and that's it. Now you have Chris Jones playing on the outside. You have Alex Okafor back in the fold. You have Tershawn Wharton potentially doing it. So that definitely is a good problem to have, I think. And I just, shameless plug, I just published an article about that, how the Chiefs built up the interior of the line. And really, when they signed Jaron Reed earlier this offseason, several people, including myself, were kind of scratching our heads at it. And I didn't buy the Chris Jones going outside stock. I thought that it was kind of smoke, and now it turns out to be a legitimate thing. So that part was interesting. And then, of course, L'Jarius Sneed. Anything revolving around him is super interesting. A guy that I like the potential plan to kind of split time between the inside and the outside and then still get those slot blitz reps. He's probably has the potential to be the best run defender among that group. The Chiefs have a ton of sound tacklers. It's kind of something they do. They're disciplined in their run fit. So really, I think Wharton and Sneed are the two kind of stars of that whole kind of conversation he was given today.
On the defensive line front, what is your expectation now with how that rotation will work? Because there's a lot we thought we might see, and we're going to see a lot more options now. I thought it was interesting that Spags talked about how he said on early downs we want to have the more stout guys out there, and it's kind of interesting because Chris Jones as a run defender in the middle he's not Derek Notty's size, but he's not an easy move for an interior lineman. So I don't think that it's a surefire thing that he couldn't be in the middle on obvious running situations. But as a bigger defensive end, it would make sense to have him out there on first and second downs, or obvious running situations, and then kick back inside. But from what we heard from Spags today, I am starting to back off a little bit the idea that it's going to be anywhere near that cut and dry.
Yeah, I think so too. And you think of Chris Jones, a guy that he wasn't a great run defender on the inside to begin with. He kind of freelanced a little bit and freestyled, a guy that did his own thing. And then you put him on the outside where Frank Clark, love him or hate him, anyone listening, anyone who has said anything about Frank Clark, he does play really good run defense and he sets a quality edge. You don't pay guys that much to do that. But anyway, Chris Jones kind of being on the outside where he has to be really disciplined and hit a certain gap, and he can't kind of go off and do his own thing. That's going to hopefully bring him back in a little bit. I mean, he's been dominating in camp, and you can only, get so much from pads, no pads, playing against his own teammates, looking good on film from training camp, from the stands, stuff like that. But I'm with you in the regard that I don't know if they have a specific plan, and that's both a good thing because you're going to see a bunch of guys kind of rotated in, and it's going to allow them to have some interesting alignments in sub packages, and the offenses aren't going to know what's coming. But also, it would be nice to have a solid idea of what the Chiefs were going to do and kind of know that they have 4 kind of all 3 down quality players. Obviously, Derek Notty's never been that guy. Frank Clark, really the only he's going to be here on all 3 or all 4 downs potentially kind of guy on that line. So good thing for them to get some guys involved, and a little bit worrisome that they don't really know exactly what they're going to do. But of course, you don't want to give away too much in training camp, and that's a whole nother conversation probably for another day.
Well, and so, I mean, it's kind of funny just depending on your perspective, because like when Rudy and I were going back and forth on this earlier in the show, like depending on your perspective, not having a set plan could mean flexibility and being able to play the matchups, which is what we were talking about, or it could mean they don't really know what's best for them yet, and that's kind of concerning. So I think it's interesting just that there are a couple of very different ways you can look at that I think are both true in their own right. You mentioned that you wrote about the Chiefs' defensive line with all those guys you rattled off. You can read that up on Arrowhead Report. That went up this morning. I forgot that went up literally this morning. It's been a weird, long day. These training camp, having press conferences that are happening at 11 and practice starting at 9, totally discombobulating by the time we're doing radio at 8 p.m. But so you can read that up there now. Another thing, though, that we heard from Travis Kelce in the pressers today, and he talked quite a bit about Noah Gray, and in fact, we'll probably bring some audio from him a little bit later on. But you wrote about Noah Gray a couple days ago, and the idea of, hey, there is some growth that will have to happen for Noah Gray. There is some risk and reward, as you wrote, but he really should be the tight end that works either beside or just behind Travis Kelce. Unpack what you've seen from Noah Gray and why you feel like that's the move for them to make.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of ultimately comes down to the fact that the Chiefs haven't got a ton from their backup tight ends in recent years. Like, even when Demetrius Harris was there, he was wildly inconsistent. He'd make some crazy catches and then would drop the routine plays. Then guys like Blake Bell, Nick Keiser, they haven't had a guy who was consistent, who was reliable. Blake Bell kind of was that. Like, he sometimes would do some good stuff, but his impact didn't always get reflected in the box score. The guy that would be a good blocker, stuff like that. Look, Noah Gray has a lot of growing to do as a blocker. He is a little bit undersized for that role. I think if they don't go with traditional fullbacks, like kind of the NFL is moving away from that, obviously, he could be an H-back. He could leak out of the backfield, get going with a head of steam, make some nice blocks in the open field, leak out and catch some passes. I think that also ties into Patrick Mahomes' not last evolution. He still was going to play a lot more football, but the next one, kind of taking your checkdowns and taking what the defense gives you. He showed that a little bit last season. I think with more time to throw, that's going to be something he does more often. That's going to lead to an increase in catches for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, guys that kind of hover around the line of scrimmage, and Noah Gray, a guy that he can just flat out do stuff that Blake Bell can't do, that Nick Keiser can't do. He has more wiggle to his game. He's a better athlete. He can line up out wide. He can line up in the slot in empty sets. People keep bringing up the Travis Kelce light, like head fake kind of thing that he brings to his game. Like, he kind of is he's advanced and raw at the same time, and that his routes aren't very crisp, but he shows the flashes of being a good route runner in the future, if that makes sense. So he's just a guy that, the Chiefs haven't got a lot from that position, so you might as well throw the kid out there who has shown some good stuff, is a good fit in the modern NFL, has some versatility, and also has that high ceiling.
The other thing you mentioned right there towards the end that I think is the best argument for Noah Gray, and on some level I think could be an argument for Trey Smith here in a minute. But it's not saying play Justin Fields day one, or trade away your veteran and give Noah Gray Travis Kelce snaps. It's just give Noah Gray the snaps that otherwise might go to Blake Bell, or it seems like Nick Keiser's probably on the outside looking in. My beloved Jody Fortson probably on the outside looking in. Like, having Noah Gray as another pass catcher that is getting a relatively significant amount of work as a rookie, I think makes a lot of sense. And then all the things you said there about Blake Bell, he can still be on this team and should, and I think will. Like, I don't know how much. I mean, I do actually to some degree. Let me rephrase this. The Chiefs did not, especially last year, run a lot of 2 tight end stuff because I think in large part, tight end 2 was Nick Keiser, and he's a limited player who played a specific role and was fine, I guess. Whenever you have a group, though, and let's say Nick Keiser doesn't make it, and let's say that Jody Fortson doesn't make it, you could see Andy Reid. I could see Andy Reid. Tell me if you agree. I could see Andy Reid doing some different things offensively where he says, hey, we have 2 tight ends who can catch passes here. Let's put them on the field at the same time. Or let's have Blake Bell on the field with Travis Kelce. Or maybe let's put Travis Kelce in the slot. Let's see if we can get all 3 tight ends on the field for a couple of strange plays over the course of the season. Maybe you've got Bell and Gray on your edges, and either of them could go out and catch a pass. Like, I just think that the number of options they could have there with an elite, Hall of Fame tight end 1, a super interesting, young, raw pass catcher tight end 2, and a professional NFL tight end 3 in Blake Bell, it becomes a really, really talented room.
100%. And you hit the nail on the head when you first opened up. The Chiefs didn't run a lot of 12 personnel really in either of the past 2 seasons. They just haven't done that. They've strayed away from it. But Noah Gray, think of the attention or lack thereof that he's going to get when Tyreek Hill's out on the field, Travis Kelce's out on the field, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a receiving threat, McCole Hardman is potentially going to make some minor ripple waves this season. Even guys like Demarcus Robinson, Byron Pringle, like Noah Gray's probably the least of defense's worries when he's out on the field, and he still is, I think, a perfect fit for that. Like, he's going to fly under the radar. He's better than people think at finding soft spots in coverage. Like, he seems like such a smart player that I think if defenses try to kind of hang back and make the Chiefs beat them kind of dink and dunk one play at a time, Noah Gray can benefit from that. If the Chiefs have a bunch of deep developing routes and he gets open underneath, he can benefit from that. If he plays the H-back role, leak out of the backfield, run some wheel-type stuff, or be a decent run blocker, I think that getting ahead of steam, he can do that. There's just a bunch of stuff that he can do. Now, that doesn't mean Andy Reid's going to have him do it or dial up many plays. But without knowing what Andy Reid plans to do for the offense, without knowing how he feels about kind of Blake Bell and Noah Gray and all those guys, Noah Gray's been getting some hype this offseason. Yeah. And, like, it's not just from like national, like Louis Riddick type people who, when he speaks, people listen. So that definitely carries a ton of weight, but also like getting reps with the ones when Kelce was out of OTAs or minicamp or whatever it was, the Chiefs clearly think highly of him, and he was a 5th-round pick for a reason. He obviously still has a ton of growing to do, but if there was one situation where he could step in and make a decent impact year one with little pressure, I think it'd be this year in Kansas City.
Agreed completely. Let's talk about somebody else who could make an impact in year one. You wrote, I think it was published the morning before the Chiefs' first full team training camp practice. Do you think Trey Smith should get the starting nod? And then they went out there, and the first team offensive line was Orlando Brown Jr., Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Mike Remmers. And over these last few days, it's been Lucas Niang at right tackle with a little Andrew Wiley in there, as Mike Remmers has been dealing with his back stiffness or whatever. It's really just been, I think it was back stiffness originally, but offensive lineman with a back injury, right tackle, presumed right tackle, starting right tackle with a back injury. We were here about a year ago, and I don't like it, and I don't like how it ended. And I don't know that Mike Remmers' injury is anywhere near as serious as Mitchell Schwartz's was, but backs for linemen, you should probably treat that relatively seriously. Anyway, With that being said, you were making this case before we started seeing, Trey Smith in one-on-one drills, and which I think is the only reason that Tucker ended up driving to St. Joe was just to be there to hold his phone while Trey Smith was doing one-on-one drills with defensive linemen. But what was the argument in your mind before seeing the Chiefs ended up agreeing with you? It seems, and what case do you think he's made so far at camp?
So before we start this, would you consider Mike Remmers today?
I would consider Mike Remmers literally day today.
And everyone knows what that, I guess, used to mean. Like, anytime a guy has a minor injury quote unquote minor, we really don't know exactly what's happening. But anytime it is we're going to wait and see what happens, like Mondesi with the Royals was kind of a day-to-day type thing for a long time. Benintendi has had some day-to-day stuff. Like, really in Kansas City in general, day-to-day is just, it's like a PTSD thing all over again.
Alex Okafor, and that's a great point. Sorry to cut you.
You're fine. As Kyle Shanahan said, I don't know who's going to be here tomorrow.
We can all be dead on Sunday.
We're all dead today.
Alex Okafor left today with the same injury that cost him an enormous chunk of last season, and nobody's talking about it because he just exited. Like, it was just Chiefs. I want to get his title right, but VP of PR, head of PR, whatever. Ted Cruz, not that one, the different one. It's spelled differently.
He's now executive vice president,
executive VP of communications, something. He came to the podium and was like, "All right, so Willie Gay's in the concussion protocol, and Alex Okafor had a hamstring." He also updated the other injuries and stuff, but hearing Alex Okafor hamstring was like, oh God, like that would be a concern. Tyreek Hill not practicing with knee tendonitis. I don't like knees and tendons showing up anywhere. It all makes me nervous. This has been a very nerve-wracking camp from an injury perspective.
I have some thoughts about Tyreek Hill and the knee, and this might have to be another conversation for the next time I come on. I don't know if we even have time for it.
Give us a smattering.
So I've been thinking. I'm not trying to put my tinfoil hat on or anything, but
put it on. Do it. This is a safe space.
When it's time to negotiate, I'm not convinced the Chiefs are going to want to make Tyreek Hill the number one paid receiver in the NFL. I'm a little bit convinced that he's going to ask for something very similar to that. Granted, he is a top 3 to 5 receiver in the league, and he probably deserves that. It's a gut feeling. I don't know how it's going to pan out. Knee tendonitis at a young age is never good. He doesn't play the Todd Gurley running back role where he's going to get hit so many times a game and get ran into the ground, but a player who relies on his speed would be turning 30 at the tail end of that deal, potentially going over 30, has the knee problem. Now, we can't all be armchair Twitter doctors, but kind of talking with people and looking at people's takes who have dealt with that before, it sticks with you. It flares up out of nowhere. I don't know. People mention like blood flow restriction therapy, stuff like that. I'm sure the Chiefs obviously have the highest of tech in terms of recovery, but I just don't have a fantastic feeling about it. And I wish I could say something juicier than that, but really, I just don't know. And it's obviously a minor thing right now, but it's never a good thing when such an athletic guy who relies on his speed is still a good receiver. Otherwise, like, don't get me wrong, but it makes you kind of wonder at least a little bit what might happen in the future.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, especially if you talk specifically about number one highest paid receiver in football stuff. Tyreek Hill's average per year right now is $18 million, which has him exactly tied with Odell Beckham Jr. and Kenny Golladay, which is sort of some weird company there. But it's those three. Now, Hill's deal, he's an unrestricted free agent in 23, and those other guys are not anywhere near that. Or they're both a year or 2 years beyond. But the rest of the receivers above Tyreek Hill are Michael Thomas, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, Julio Jones, and DeAndre Hopkins. The reason that I bring all this up at all is that Keenan Allen, third highest paid receiver by average per year on their current deal, which is not always the same as the guarantees and stuff, but just for the sake of the back of the napkin math, Keenan Allen's making $20.025 million, $20 million almost flat.
Yeah.
Julio's making 22. DeAndre Hopkins' average annual value is 27. And I think the Chiefs would probably, and I don't expect Hill to get an extension this offseason, and so play out this year, and we'll see. And if the need to deny us never shows up again, then we can all hopefully feel dumb about ever worrying about it. But I do think it's kind of interesting. I think they would give him 23 a year, but I don't think they're going to want to give him 28 a year. And that is the difference between being the number 2 highest paid receiver whenever he'll come up for his next deal and the number 1 highest paid receiver. And that is a relatively large jump to make, both from a team perspective and from a player perspective.
Yeah, and the two things to piggyback off of that, first, the restructure, non-restructure thing, I personally didn't even think twice about it when he said it, but that is 5% weird. All of this is a very minimal. All of this is very minimal in terms of potential long ramifications, but it's a series of things that makes you think. And then also, it's the Hopkins contract is ridiculous. He's obviously great, but that gap between 22, 27, you take into account the salary cap boom. So by the time he's ready for an extension, he's going to, because you look ahead of him, Thomas 2025, Cooper 2025, Allen 2025, Julio 2024. So he will essentially be resetting the market at least a little bit, and that's going to come up at the negotiation table. I guess they can't really look at the current guys at that point, I suppose. But like you said, that would put him at 23, and that's without taking into account a salary cap boom where he's going to say, I deserve this much of the pie. And I mean, obviously it's a fantastic tactic to have. I mean, you're a great player. You deserve that level of money. But like you said, hopefully we all look back on it and the knee never clears up, or at least it's a very minor thing. The contract works out. But just something I was thinking about this week a little bit.
And yeah, if Allen Robinson gets a giant bag of money as an unrestricted free agent where the entire league can bid for his services next year, we're going to see some interesting receiver numbers. Real quick on the restructuring thing, just because I know this can end up people got kind of weirdly defensive on behalf of Tyreek Hill on this front. The reason it's weird isn't because he didn't want to take a pay cut or something. The reason it's kind of weird is that with everything we know about those type of restructures, you could have seen Tyreek Hill have money move, but not actually, he probably would have gotten paid more money sooner. Typically how those restructures work, where you make it you make it something you can prorate for a few years, but the cash has to end up being in the bank account at that time. So that was what was weird to me about it. And we'll see if that ends up taking us anywhere. But
yeah, Trey Smith. I totally we totally went off the beaten path for 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I hate it when this show does that, and you know that. So I'm pretty mad. So no, give me your sort of bite size where you were at with Trey Smith as you were thinking perhaps you were campaigning for him to take that spot, and then how you're feeling now that he is right now, at least with Kyle Long being out, and it's hard to say if he would have changed the equation at all, presumably the starter.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, man, if Trey Smith ends up winning that job, which I do think is going to happen. I mean, you can't base everything off training camp snaps, but you can get a good idea off of them. I think it says a lot more about Trey Smith than it does about the people he's competing against, like Kyle Long working his way back from an injury. Had he not gotten injured, then this would be a completely different conversation, but stuff happens in the NFL. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, no one really talking about him, and it's not that he was an underperforming, bad player when he was with the Chiefs, but he was good, then he got injured, then he came back and was not so good, or he was not so good, then he got hurt, whatever the order of all that was. Trey Smith is young. He's healthy. The biggest worry about him has been cleared, and it was the medical concerns. He was a second-round talent, I think, maybe even an early third-round talent, but still a good day 2 pick in the draft. It's not like a Lucas Niang situation where he was a day 2 guy that sat out for an entire season and wasn't playing and is getting back in shape and getting used to the team. He's incredibly smart. There's no worry about him picking up anything. He fits the kind of redesign of the offense and the offensive line. It's not like the Chiefs are returning 4 out of 5 guys and then Trey Smith would be jumping in and interrupting the continuity or something. Everyone is learning on the fly, and I think that this is a perfect time to Andy Reid's not known for starting rookies along his offensive line. He really has strayed from that, regardless of early round investment, undrafted status, whatever it is. I just think Trey Smith is ready for it. And he has the mean streak. He has the fundamentals down. He's a good player. He's promising. Two of the guys he's competing against really don't have extremely strong cases. Kyle Long injured. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif just maybe not as good as Trey Smith right now. And it's not to say like Trey Smith is going to step in and be an all-pro right guard, but, I mean, it just makes sense. It's kind of like Noah Gray in that you don't have a whole lot to lose, and it says more about the players stepping up. But you look at the group around them, and you're like, man, if the player's good and they beat out that group, then so be it. They deserve to have that job.
And you find if it's Kyle Long or if it's LTT or if it's both guys or whatever, there is nothing wrong with having one or both of those guys being guys who will step in, not if, but when somebody gets hurt. Because someone's going to get hurt for some period of time. They are not going to get, what's 5 times 17? Let's see here. 5 times 17 is 85. They're not going to get 85 starts from Orlando Brown Jr., Joe Tooney, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and whoever their starting right tackle ends
Would
up
you
being.
bet a taser bet on it?
No, because I still have one to pay off, and so I'm not going to get a second mortgage on my bets in that way. But I also think it's very, very interesting to think about it in the way that you did of, hey, this is not a bad time for rookies. It's the perfect time for rookies because everything is changing. Everything is sort of up in the air. So let's go ahead and get our best guys out there and set ourselves up best for the future, being 2021 and also the next 3, 4, 5 years. So I think there's plenty of reason to be excited about it. Jordan, we'll let you go. Tell people what's up next. What do you write? Do you even know yet what your next, or maybe is it written? Do you know what your next topic's going to be on Roughing the Kicker on Friday and on Arrowhead Report?
We're doing a mailbag, so whatever interesting tidbit pops out of that mailbag, I'm going to spin it into an article and take a stance and try to do something cool. So I'm not sure what it's going to be, but it's going to be something fun.
Well, if you would like to get your question answered by Jordan and the RTK gang and maybe see it show up on Arrowhead Report, you can tweet him at Footnoted, FOOTENOTED, and you can get in touch that way. Jordan's pretty perpetually online, so he'll see it, I imagine. You tweet him there. And see if you get your question answered. Jordan, thank you for being here. Sorry you had to hear your radio parents fight again at the beginning of the segment. Next time we have you on, we'll try to have some more domestic bliss.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks a lot.
Jordan Foote of ArrowheadReport.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Footnoted. You can read his work at Arrowhead Report and go subscribe to the Roughing the Kicker Chiefs podcast wherever you get your podcasts, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Jordan and the whole gang there do a really, really good job. And especially as we get to real football, now that we're watching some real football out in St. Joe, it's a good place to be. We'll take a break, and whenever we come back, either more sound. I've got a Jeopardy thing. Rudy tagged me and Beards in a tweet that almost made me laugh out loud while Jordan was talking. So we'll have plenty to discuss whenever we come back.
Did you know you can listen to Almost Entirely Sports anywhere, anytime? Well, you can. Just search for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts. You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports
But let's get excited about that 69. I mean, that's pretty good this time of year, isn't it?
with Joshua Brisco
I know you're excited about the win, but how about that 69?
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I don't know why, but for me, every time the part that gets me from that liner is good night. Just trying. Nope.
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 Nope. Not
Nope.
gonna do it.
Good night.
Don't say it, Josh.
Good night.
Nope. Good night.
Do you guys know who Mike Richards is?
No.
Beards, I don't even know if you remember, and you definitely saw a tweet about this earlier today. You know who Mike Richards is?
Oh, is this the one that I sent to you guys?
Nope.
Oh, never mind then. No, I don't.
You read the tweet and forgot the name because his name is Mike Richards. He
I went
in
to high school with a Mike Richards.
he is in advanced negotiations to become the permanent host of Jeopardy.
Oh, the Green Bay Packers quarterback.
Oh.
Got it.
Here's a couple things. So one, apparently I saw somebody tweet who was like, seemed like they would watch Jeopardy. It was like, oh, actually, he was like the best of the fill-in guys, and whatever, fine. If you're going for generic, I mean, just generic, somewhat younger white dude with, pretty professional hair and a suit to fill in the Trebek role, he'll just become the Jeopardy guy. And I'm sure people were confused when Drew Carey started hosting The Price is Right.
Sure.
Whatever. Although Drew Carey we all knew of before this, so maybe not a great comparison by me. But he is apparently going to be the next guy. It would have made so much sense for LeVar Burton to end up in this spot.
Yep.
But for me, the funniest thing about this is something that has happened a couple of times in sports. He is the executive producer of Jeopardy. Or a executive producer of Jeopardy. It's like whenever hiring firms, I think this happened with the Dolphins once. This happened with somebody else recently. I think maybe it was in baseball, where you hire like someone to look into who you should hire as your next GM or whatever, and then they go through the whole process and they say, you know what, I've decided I've found your candidate, and it's me. It feels kind of like that may have happened here with Mike Richards.
So he just became the executive producer of Jeopardy.
Post Trebek?
2020, for the 2020-21 season, Richard succeeded the retiring Harry Friedman as executive producer. One of the funny things, though, he was a finalist for The Price is Right before Drew Carey got it. So, little Drew Carey reference in there.
And so, I mean, he's hosted some other game shows and everything. So my guess is that you have the option of try to get some star power or try to get someone who's going to do this job for 25 years and just do it very professionally or whatever.
For sure.
Or retire yourself.
But it's kind of a dud. Like, it's kind of a dud hire if you, like, LeVar Burton just made all the sense in the world. The Reading Rainbow guy becomes the Jeopardy guy. I'm not going to watch Jeopardy regardless, probably. Patrick Mahomes was hosting Jeopardy. I'm not sure I would watch, like, if he did, like, an episode.
I'd watch the Twitter highlights.
Definitely. But so I'm not personally bothered by this.
What channel is Jeopardy even on?
Is it an NBC thing?
I don't.
No idea.
I don't know.
Or is it CBS?
I don't know if it is.
Page.
I don't know if it is universally only on
a channel.
One channel.
Its distributor is CBS Media Ventures, so I'm assuming it is on CBS.
That makes sense. I think I've probably
its original network was NBC, but it's been in syndication since 1984. So my guess is it's like CBS is the distributor of it, but it's on obviously a variety of channels.
I'm guessing CBS is just distributing it to local CBS stations.
Yes,
because they probably. I'm guessing that
my guess is reruns play throughout various channels.
But probably not on network though. Probably on your
like the
game show
network.
Yeah,
like I wouldn't be shocked if they're like TBS at some point, right? Like you know what I mean, like those kind of channels.
So there you go. The search is over. Mike Richards. Yeah. We at some point are gonna have to have a shorter segment and take a break so we can, if we want to, get to any more Spag sound before Harold Kuntz of Fox4 joins us. So I think this segment was in jeopardy, And we should take a break now, and whenever we come back, play more audio from Chiefs camp today, because there's a bunch of good stuff we haven't gotten to yet. And we're only on until 9:30 this evening as Sporting Kansas City takes on LAFC. Coverage begins here at 9:30 tonight. So we'll take a break. We'll come back with some training camp audio. Harold Kuntz of Fox4 at 9. That's the plan for the rest of the show. See if maybe we see if LeVar Burton wants to do a segment or something, since apparently he's got more free time. That would be fun. I would enjoy that.
Someone telling me he's probably still going to be pretty busy.
Do we think Mike Richards could play quarterback for the Packers? If both of them had to do both, that's good. What about the Vikings? All their quarterbacks are in COVID protocols.
Well, I mean, yeah, technically right now, yeah, they need somebody.
All right, that joke wasn't as funny as I wanted it to be. I really just was searching for one, and I didn't really have that much. You know, they can't all be winners, which we prove every single night.
Take the show with you wherever you go. Listen live on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app and 810WHB.com. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Congratulations. Take that W. Straight to hell.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, I promised you more audio from Chiefs camp. Let's do some of it. We don't have a ton of time in the remainder of this hour, so I'm going to blast through a few of these. One from the mustachioed Travis Kelce. We talked about Noah Gray with Jordan Foote earlier in the hour. Travis Kelce talked about Noah Gray a couple of times, actually, out there in St. Joe. And he gave his assessment of the Chiefs rookie tight end, who's working on emulating some parts of Kelce's game and trying to find his way onto the field.
Oh, yeah, he's going to help us this year, man. I can't wait to till the world sees what that guy can do, man. He's doing an unbelievable job of just, learning this offense. There's so much you have to do in this offense as a tight end, and especially the move guy, not just the wide tight end, but being the U. And your knowledge you have to be understanding what everybody's capable of doing. The running backs, the wide receivers, the fullbacks, and not only that, but know the tight end position. I think what Noah's doing a great job of is just getting in that playbook and being able to go out there on the snap of the ball, play with confidence, play fast. And from there, it's just every rep. Every rep you get, you learn something. And you can watch other guys and figure out, how you want to attack certain defenses with those reps. And I think he's doing a great job of just, going to work here in training camp and trying to become the best football player he can be, man.
Now, also, all the things that Kelsey said there are the reasons it's going to be hard for Noah Gray to be that guy in week 1, because it's knowing the tight end position, being able to run out of the backfield, not just being the wide tight end, but being able to be the move-around guy, as Kelsey said there. So there are hurdles for Gray to clear. If he can, his physical tools, though, seem like they could provide some really interesting things for the Chiefs. So my hopes are relatively high. Taco Charlton also spoke to the media today, and this answer, I think, is really good for a bunch of context, but also definitely provides a little bit of hesitation. Our own Steven St. John asked Taco how he's feeling about the ankle that he broke last year, as he's now getting a lot of work on it here in training camp.
Has its good days, has its bad days. Some days I feel great. I feel like my old self. And then, some days after, banging around, going like that, I may come back and it's a little sore. It's hurt me a little bit. So it has its good days and bad days. But I try to push through it. I'm just happy to be out there and be able to do something. After, having the season over like that in the blink of an eye for me was tough. So, I'm happy to get a chance to be out here with my teammates and be in a position to, help them win games in the future.
Maybe the most interesting context there is Taco breaks his ankle last year. He's on IR. He comes back this year. He was up there reporting early at camp, so he probably should have known that he was not 100% as he was working fully back, but also so was Juan Thornhill. He said he pretty much was 100%. DeAndre Baker as well, so TBD, I guess. But good to keep in mind, I think, that having an off season does not reset you to 100% health. And I'm as guilty of that, I think, as anybody on this, is not, pointing any fingers. Like, it's easy to think, all right, well, he had several months to recover, so he's good to go. It's not 100% where it needs to be. And I don't know that he's going to be 100% at any point over the course of this season. Like, I would not assume that. So I think he can play still. He can have a role. But I bet he shows up on the injury report, with ankle something for being a limited participant in practice sometime this year, because that's the nature of coming back from an injury like that. Here's another player. The other guy that talked today was Harrison Butker. And, look, you're talking to a kicker, and your two main things I think are, hey, how far can you kick the ball? And also, is your head going to be right whenever you're called upon? And the latter is more interesting to me because, as Butker lays out here, there's a lot that goes into being a kicker. Some of it that we can think about, but it's very hard to understand without kind of being maybe literally in their shoes.
So much of kicking is mindset. I always say that there's a lot of kickers sitting on the couch that are better ball strikers than me, that are physically better kickers, but for whatever reason, mentally, they weren't able to put it together. So you could have a guy that's not in the league come out here and kick on the sticks against me and probably do a pretty good job. But if you're not able to put it together in those big pressure moments, then you're probably not going to make it at the highest level playing in the NFL. For me, visualization is huge. Just going to the spot, imagining, okay, the wind's going this direction. How would I want the holder to hold it? Where would I be aiming? Making sure that my breathing is slowed down. Kind of all those things that I guess are separate from the physical realm. But, as you kind of alluded to, mentally, the better you are, you're going to separate yourself as a kicker. And I think that's why a lot of teams trust those veteran kickers that maybe don't have the leg strength, but in big moments when they really need a field goal, they can count on that kicker to deliver, under a big pressure moment.
And he later on, he talked more about some of the bad times. I mean, he missed a couple extra points last year. I think it was like he missed like 3, or he missed a couple extra points and a couple chip shots or something like that. And then also had the game winner against the Chargers. He talked about in both of those instances, like having a short memory is beneficial because you've just got to go on to the next one. I think at one point there was somebody who tweeted something like, How much would it be worth to a team to have a kicker who is automatic just from like 50 yards or less? There's 100%. You don't even kick it, right? You just say, hey, really, you're a robot and it's going to work every time. And you just have to, as long as you block, it'll go in, and maybe even that's part of it. That's really, really valuable. Butker, I think, has hit a kick from 60 in camp already this year. Like, he clearly has a great leg and is going to end up being one of the most powerful kickers in football. I think probably already is. Will probably prove that this year. Will probably be that guy as he continues to get even. I don't know when your physical peak is as a kicker, but I bet he's got some juice left.
Yeah.
But if you end up folding in big moments, that leg is completely useless now. That power does not matter. And, I think that we have seen, even with a couple instances of Butker having some limited yips, he's come through in really big moments. The times it seems like he's actually struggled have been in not such clutch moments, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if there's anything to that or not. But I will say that I think kicking, and specifically field goal kicking, is the biggest part of football that we talk the least about. Like that ratio there. What we've spent shows on Trey Smith. I think he's exciting. I think it's fun. I think it's interesting. We've spent shows on the guard position over the last year. Your kicker is more important to your wins and losses. Their consistency, their excellence is more important than one individual guard, because they're in a spotlight. They are by themselves on an island. But it's also not really football in the traditional sense, and we don't really know how to talk about it all. So I thought it was interesting to hear from Butker.
I think that's the main thing. It's like we have people like Seth and plenty of others who know how to break down offensive linemen and all these positions. Sometimes they're wrong, sometimes you're right. Like it happens, they're never perfect, but like there are people who like break down kicking in that way. So it's just it's really hard to talk about something because we know so little about it.
And we all see it.
Yeah.
You kick the ball, you can see the snap and the hold and the kick.
Yep.
And does it go in or not? What's the wind? Everyone sees that pretty much in real time. And it's also one of the rare times in football where the result is binary. You make it or you miss it. Lots of other stuff happens in a block, So that was kind of interesting. There's your little kicking tidbit for tonight's show. We'll take a break. Whenever we come back, Harold Kuntz of Fox4 will join us. We'll ask him what he's seen out there in St. Joe and what he knows about kicking, maybe, probably not. He's next.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I'm Doug Brown. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reports the Wizards are finalizing a sign-and-trade deal to get Nets free agent guard Spencer Dinwiddie on a 3-year, $60 million contract. This transaction is now part of the Russell Westbrook to the Lakers deal. The whole 5-team package now also includes the Pacers and the Spurs. Woj reports Kemba Walker will join the Knicks after agreeing to a buyout with the Thunder. Oklahoma City got Walker in a trade with the Celtics back in June. ESPN's Rachel Nichols says it's a good move for the Knicks.
I just think that he is going to succeed there. I understand the size issues and when they get to the playoffs, the defense and all of that stuff, but I do think that team is set up for him to do well. And also remember, when you're talking about drawing those free agents in, part of it that you're selling is MSG, right? The atmosphere, the fans.
Rachel Nichols on Get Up. Walker grew up in New York playing at Rice High School. The Dodgers signed lefty Cole Hamels for the rest of the season. Hamels started only one game last year with the Braves. He's been recovering from arm and shoulder injuries. ESPN's Adam Schefter reports the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers reward defensive coordinator Todd Bowles with a new 3-year contract. He'll still be the highest paid D coordinator in the NFL. And the Washington football team will not allow fans to wear any Native American gear or have face paint at home games this season. The team plans to announce a new nickname early in 2022.
It's Bart Scott, and Thursday on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, we're getting you ready for the opener of the NFL preseason. No Dak, no Ben, so we'll tell you what you should be watching in the Hall of Fame game. That's Thursday morning on ESPN Radio.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
You know, no, I'm not Travis Kelce. God, I wish I was, though.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Let's talk about training camp a little more, because why not? And also because it's just sort of the thing that we have going on at the moment. Harold Kuntz of Fox4 joins us now. He was up there in St. Joe today enjoying all the beautiful amenities, the beautiful weather, all of the other great things that St. Joe has to offer. And actually, I don't think it was too miserable out there today, was it, Harold, weather-wise at the very least?
No, it was great, actually. Nice. It's not as blazing hot like it was when the rookies were here. I do love how once the veterans game, it toned down a bit. It was kind of fascinating.
I have to think that there was, Patrick Mahomes is out there working fully. Travis Kelce's out there working fully. At some point, they just had a conversation with whoever pulls all the strings for the weather in St. Joe. They got it pulled down a couple degrees.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's what they do. I mean, St. Patrick Mahomes, St. Andy, St. Andrew, and friends. They contacted people. Plus, St. Joe, they're kind of in their nice little pocket and up there in northwest Missouri. They know what to do.
If the Chiefs asked, I think you could get a number of fans in St. Joe to just basically pull a tarp over the entire field, maybe just a World War Z style, just human beings stacking atop each other to basically build an impromptu retractable roof over the practice fields. I think we should see them do that.
Well, that reminds me of the Simpsons movie where they put a dome over Springfield.
Yes.
That's exactly what. Yeah, I don't know how much that would cost to call the EPA, if you remember the movie any, but that's exactly what they. Or what did they have that show Under the Dome back in the day that was kind of popular?
Yeah, there was. Yeah. It's based on
a
Stephen King
novel.
Yeah, it seemed like something that should have been good, and then I saw some trailers for it, and then never heard about it again.
I think it had a couple actors from Lost in it too, if I remember right. Because I think that show came out when I was watching Lost for the first time, and seeing people, I was like, oh, that person's in Lost.
Yeah, but then no one apparently watched it.
Probably,
which feels about right. Other than the weather and the dome and everything, Harold, I really actually enjoyed today's pressers, mostly just because I missed Steve Spagnuolo. And I just want to always make clear for any new listeners, I have no sarcasm in my voice at all right now. Spags is my favorite press conference from anybody in the Chiefs organization. It is not close, and he actually said some interesting stuff today, I thought.
Sure, yeah. I mean, first, point out that Nick Bolton and Willie Gay are having impressive camps. Of course, Willie Gay now a concussion protocol, so hopefully he gets out of that, within a week and before they play their first preseason game up in San Francisco. But yeah, they've been absolutely impressive. He says everybody's going to have a different role. Chris Jones is going to have a different role, as we all know, being end and at tackle. And I mean, the only person I really believe on the defensive line that's going to really only play that position is Jaron Reed and maybe Derek Notch. I mean, those guys are probably going to be tackled. Everybody else, it's adjustable. I really like the depth that they have on defensive line. I mean, Treshawn Wharton, if you watch some of the one-on-ones they have with linemen, Treshawn Wharton versus Austin Blythe today, that, my friends, was, whew, I mean,
I didn't see any clips. Was it one-sided or was it a scene from Pacific Rim?
Very, very one-sided. Turk Wharton just handled Austin Blythe like he was a backup center.
Yep.
And then you see Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, and these guys are just at a different level right now. And yeah, I mean, Trey Smith is holding his own. Creed Humphrey is, once he gets in that good squat position, it's over. You know, that shiny Oklahoma wrestling out of him. And I mean, those guys honestly, those guys might be more solid, dare I say, at least so far from the 2 days they've had in camp, than the other side of the line with Orlando Brown and Joe Tilley. Now, of course, they're putting Chris Jones up against Orlando Brown and Joe Tilley. I don't believe Creed or Trey's had the Chris Jones experience just yet, because Chris Jones was like an absolute monster so far. And the other guy that, you know, we haven't seen to be a monster so far, Frank Clark, I'm kind of waiting to see him be a monster out there. Maybe they're just keeping him rested. You know, they know how to deal with his capabilities and his ability right now. But, man, I just love the depth of that defensive line. That's where I think their play is going to shine. I mean, like, who cares about quarterbacks? They're getting to the quarterback in 2 seconds.
Yeah, I am not. You know, I've said many times, I'm a simple man. I like quarterbacks and receivers. I like defensive backs. I like offense. That's just, you know, that's my starting point. And even for me, I think clearly the trenches are the most interesting thing from this training camp in both of them, for all the reasons that you just laid out. Outside of that, Spags also talked about the secondary quite a bit and seeing L'Jarius Sneed working outside and inside some, and then what they're doing in terms of DeAndre Baker, who didn't practice today but has been getting some work, Mike Hughes and Rashad Fenton. Did anything catch your eye in terms of who was working where?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a real battle on our hands with Mike Hughes and DeAndre Baker. I think that's going to really determine the next corner slot. And it's a good chance for a veteran to make his play there with Mike Hughes, but I think DeAndre Baker's being underrated too. I mean, L'Jarius is going to be on the outside, and Tyron's going to be there, and Juan, when he's healthy, he wasn't active today either. When he's healthy, those guys are going to, you know, take a lot of the grunt at safety. Dan Sorensen kind of flies around there too. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying watching the matchup between Mike Hughes and DeAndre Baker there, because you can't really tell which way they're going there, which way they're leaning. I mean, one day it's Hughes, one day it's Baker. I mean, they're not making a lot of plays in the one-on-ones, but they're making enough. And L'Jarius is getting tested. So we already know that. He's getting tested by McCole. He's getting tested by the Marches. But those other guys like Mike Hughes, I mean, they're just up there. And then another guy we're not mentioning right now, Devin Key. This guy showed up. You're putting him with the ones. They really like Steve Spagnuolo gushed about him. Because he said, yeah, Nick Bolton, you know, I get it. He's great. Yeah, you know, Burgess did a good job recruiting him. And yeah, I know about Willie Gay. And their second years would be great when he's learned the playbook. That's good. But, man, Devin Key, what? Let's talk about this undrafted free agent out of Western Kentucky, darn it. Conference USA guy. This okay played in Conference USA. L'Jarius Sneed.
Yes, we played that clip from Spags earlier in the show, and I said, you know, I don't want to put this pressure on Key, but like it feels kind of similar to some of the buzz we started to hear around Sneed this time last year.
And first off, the hair is amazing, and second off, I love the fact that he's a Hilltopper. So Hilltoppers, obviously, in Western Kentucky, your nickname was Big Red, just like Andy Reid.
Wow.
It's a perfect fit. He's wearing red. It's you know, and not only that, I mean, Western Kentucky offered me a full scholarship when I was in high school, because that's how easy of a school was to get into. So that has nothing to do with what I have to say. I just want to throw it out there because I can. But yeah, it was just, watch me, they're putting him into ones. I mean, like, okay, this is not like Andrew Wiley being put into ones simply because, you know, eventually they need to play every lineman in the ones because, well, we saw what happened last year. Yeah. But gosh, Lee, he's active. He's there. I mean, he doesn't have the interceptions that Nick Bolton has or the wow plays that Willie Gay's have, but he's very active. And I mean, for him to say, like, well, let me tell you about Devin. Like, you like watching Spags press conferences, and when he says something like that, let me talk about this young man for a second. That's something. Usually, it's kind of like, well, I don't like to individualize people. No, Devin Key. Yeah, that's you like him.
You're right. I mean, he literally said, I think it was in the answer about Game Bolton. He was like, I don't want to just talk about two guys, but you're right. But let me spend some time talking about this UDFA. Most importantly, if you had to explain Devin Key's hair to someone who hasn't seen it yet, and I will tell you if you haven't seen it and you're anywhere near Google, it is important. How would you describe it?
I don't know if you're familiar with the rapper J. Cole, kind of old J. Cole, when he had it's like the Afro dreads. A lot of hair, all kind of sick. Kind of dready. So, yeah.
Who was it that was just, this is going to take us in an entire different direction, but there was the NBA player, the former Texas big man, who got arrested and then the actual video came out and it's not great.
Jackson Hayes?
Yeah, that's right. There's I think a little bit,
yeah,
not quite.
That's good. Yeah. Good.
But it has more flow than that for Devin Key. Like if he was in he could be in a hair band, like a 70s or an 80s hair band with this, and it would be a very, very powerful look. So anyway, another reason to root for Devin Key if you weren't already. You mentioned, obviously, Willie Gay ended up in the concussion protocol today. Juan Thornhill has a groin injury that has kept him out. You've seen Mike Remmers has missed, I think, 4 practices in a row. Tyreek Hill has with the back, right? Tyreek Hill has knee tendonitis. He was a late scratch yesterday and then didn't practice today. That
concerns me a little bit.
So that's the thing. Yeah. Which ones of those do concern you and which ones don't from sort of the early camp injuries? And then do you find any concern for just sort of the number of them? Because nothing super serious for any of these guys, but I wonder and I worry a little bit.
Yeah, they're important pieces to the puzzle indeed. I mean, Juan Thornhill kind of concerns me a little bit because it's a groin, and you just hate to see the guy that's 100% go back to being, 70, 80%, but it's a groin injury. But I'm going to tell you right now, I mean, they're going to tell you they're going to tell you all the time that Tyreek Hill's not fine, knee tendonitis. They're probably saving him for the season. But let me tell you something. I've dealt with knee tendonitis since I was 16. It doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who's had knee tendonitis, I mean, granted, he's got some of the best trainers and work staff and equipment to get over that. You just have to really just work hard in the quad buster and a lot of other things. But man, I'm telling you, it's just one of those things where, like, you're fine for 2 weeks and everybody seems fine, and all of a sudden, like, the 4th or 5th week, you're like, ow.
Yeah.
And then you realize you can't run. And then you just keep off of it for a week, and then you go 4, 5, 6 weeks, who knows, and it's fine, and then you're like, ow, again. So it's recurring. It just doesn't go away. I mean, now, granted, I know I'm different. My situation, like, my whole family had bad tendonitis. Like, it's Harold the first. So, and I'm the third for reference. So, I mean, that's a different situation. But it lingers. I mean, it lingers. It's not going to affect you, but, you're not going to be as explosive sometimes as you would wish you are. I mean, some days it just doesn't respond. And I think that's exactly what happened the other day, where they realized, he went out there, he tried again, and then just realized, it's not coming. So, yeah. I mean, it's just, like concussion protocol, will be fine. Groin, it just lingers. For that reason alone, that's why I'm the most concerned.
I didn't know that was. It would have been pretty cool actually if I would have been like, now Harold, you've had knee tendonitis your entire life, and then you could, that. A lot of people don't know what a HIPAA violation is. I may have had someone commit a HIPAA violation to get that information, I think, behind your back. But
well, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So, like, when I was my junior year in high school, I was an idiot, and I tried to play 3 sports in 1 year. So I played football, I got to it pretty much okay. But then basketball, it started lingering. Like, at the beginning of the season, I could do stuff, I could jump, and then toward the end of the year, I'm like, my knees are all tired. And then beginning of track season, I tried to do a high jump, 3rd meet. I distinctly remember I went up to just lift off my left leg, and all of a sudden I just fell. And I could do nothing about it. I tried to get up, and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And then it tires you out. It wears you out. So, like, they'll find a way to manage it. They'll find a way to just keep him off his feet. You might not see him practicing a lot during the season, I'd imagine, but it's just one thing that you definitely have to monitor because it sure lingers.
That's the thing, and It's why I've said I didn't want to alarm anybody, and I'll tell you what, you have not made anybody feel better today. But
it's a living thing.
It's true, yeah, and that's the thing. Anything knee, anything tendon-y makes me a little bit nervous, and my, just looking into some very rudimentary, knee tendonitis research over the last couple of days, limited as it was, my exact thought was, man, it just wouldn't surprise me one bit to see Tyreek Hill not practice in week 6. We're just a knee designation, and then later we find out that it's because it's just sort of them trying to go off and on with keeping his knee in good shape. And I think it was Jordy Nelson who tore his ACL and then came back and then ended up with knee tendonitis, I believe, in the other knee, like overcompensating and everything. And that stuff just worries me because all of a sudden you're trying to keep one knee in as good a shape as possible, and then now you tweak something in your back, and that's, then you're just an elite talent, unbelievable wide receiver who has some weird stuff going on throughout the course of an NFL season where you also get hit plenty. Like, it makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is. It should. That's just the way that injury. I mean, you do overcompensate things. Like, I know my left knee was the one that had major tendonitis, and then I used it so darn much, my right knee started, cranking up a bit, and then you're just not what you can be. Like, it's not like you go from running, like, let's use a 100-meter dash since that's easy to raise your hip. It's not like you go from running a 10.5 to like an 11.7. You definitely go from a 10.5 to a 10.8. Nothing's a difference. It really does. So you got to manage it. You got to make sure it's ice. And that's why I say you'll see him out of practice a lot, especially in training camp where they're hitting. And, it's physical right now. Just need to lay low, chill, and keep it rested, keep it iced. And, just try to get out there. And when you can go. But manage it. Know that the twitchiness that we love out of Tyreek Hill, the cheetah speed, it's like eventually, you just kind of learn your ways around it to kind of still be fast out in the field, but also manage it.
Tyreek Hill's under contract through next offseason. We were just talking to Jordan Foote about Tyreek Hill stuff and also being a little bit nervous about the knee thing. If you were in the Chiefs' shoes, and man, we don't have the full picture, and we're very early on in all this, so I understand this is maybe an overreaction, but does that make you a little bit cautious about the idea of having Tyreek Hill signed to a long-term deal until he's 30?
No, I still think you do it simply because you can't replace the expertise and skill level that he does have. I mean, there's also an intimidation factor to speed. There's a reputation factor to speed. And I give you a good example. Let's use Usain Bolt. The third time he ran the 100-meter dash in the Olympic trial, he didn't run as fast. He didn't run a fast time. He didn't run, compared to him, obviously. He didn't run a fast time, but he had that sheer intimidation value of, like, somebody feels like they're chasing Usain Bolt. They're like, oh, man, oh, God, it's Usain Bolt. And, he still has the reputation of being very, very fast. One of the fastest guys in the league, if not the fastest. So, yes, you keep him. And still as a receiver, in match, he still high points the ball, even though he's, like 5'10", 6 feet generously. And he's still a great route runner, because to utilize your speed on the football field is a lot different than just running in a straight line. I mean, you run a crisp route, you've got separation. And he can do that. And, he can turn. We saw in the Buffalo AFC Championship game a few plays where he turned a short pass in the 40 yards. So, he's still got that intimidation factor, and he's still one of the best out there. So, you can sign him. But, I mean, it's just one thing you have to monitor. It's just another thing on the list that you have to be like, okay, let's be cautious. And like you said, if there's like week 5, week 6 where he's just not really practicing much during a week, but he's ready for Sunday, then so be it. You want to be healthy for game day and not during practice.
All right, I feel like we've maybe gotten people to feel slightly better again. So that's, I feel like we've delivered a well-balanced breakfast.
That was your goal out of this. No, yeah, that was your goal out of this. Yeah, turn cinnamon toast crunch into Wheaties. Yep, I got you.
Well, but no, listen, I would much prefer cinnamon toast crunch if I'm being honest. It's a lot. It's a very sweet cereal.
I say Wheaties because it's the breakfast of champions.
I disagree. I think Count Chocula is the breakfast of champions. What's your favorite cereal, Harold?
Frosted Flakes.
It is a classic, but you have that answer ready to go.
Very, very close second to 2 scoops. I call Raisin Bran 2 scoops.
Is it because every box has 2 scoops of raisins?
Yep, that's my nickname for it. 2 scoops.
I didn't know what you meant, and then I immediately did What a good marketing campaign that was. Because it was like, of course. Oh, yeah, 2 scoops. It must have been Raisin Bran. So Frosted Flakes I get. I think Frosted Flakes is a classic. Raisin Bran, a little bit less of a traditional top cereal choice. Explain your love of Raisin Bran.
Raisins.
It's a very
I know
underrated
like
cereal.
a really. I know that sounded like a jerk response back, but I mean that's really what it is. Raisins.
Okay, so all right, we're gonna pivot. We'll pivot to. Oh, go ahead.
Here's the thing. I love Raisin Bran. Same reason. I like raisins.
Okay.
I really like Raisin Bran.
I'm gonna tell you guys something crazy that's gonna blow your guys' mind. Okay. Harold, are you sitting down?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I'm afraid I was gonna knock you over if you weren't. You can buy raisins by themselves.
They're good in a cereal.
You can put them in any cereal.
Wow.
You can put them in any cereal.
Wow.
I like raisins. I will make a carrot and raisin salad. I'll put the raisins in. I'll put it in some cinnamon life. It's great. I'm all about that. I am also pro raisin. I think raisins get way too much hate.
Don't put raisins in potato salad. That's all I ask.
That's fine. That's yeah. No, that I would never dream. You know what I think is super underrated? Oatmeal raisin cookies. They're good.
They are.
I love oatmeal raisin cookies. We are friends now.
Finally.
I mean, we're all right.
I would have thought we were already. You said what you said.
Finally there.
We were at a 7.5, but now we're like at a 9.5 now. Like that's pretty big now. Oatmeal raisins. Like my colleagues at work can't stand oatmeal raisins. I'm on an island with oatmeal raisins. My gum. If I haven't been to Westport in the middle of the night getting some oatmeal raisins at Insomnia Cookies,
sounds delicious.
Good stuff.
The actual cookie is so soft, but you get a little extra texture from the oatmeal, and then the little surprise of a bright, shiny raisin in there. Beards, your thoughts on oatmeal raisin cookies?
Chocolate chip cookies are delicious. I'm glad we can all agree on this.
Woo.
Also, snickerdoodles are
Oatmeal
really good.
raisins are good. Chocolate chips are good. Yeah, it's all good stuff.
Yeah, I think most cookies are good. I mean, there aren't a whole lot of cookies. It was over the weekend, girlfriend Renee was like, hey, do you like sugar cookies? And I was like, I mean, they're not, like, I wouldn't draft them #1 overall, but if you make sugar cookies, I'm going to eat them. And so she made sugar cookies, and I ate them. Like that's.
I like snickerdoodles. I think those are fantastic.
Snickerdoodles are one that I grew into a little bit. I don't think they were my favorite in the world, and now they're really good.
Yeah, but I definitely, my wife loves them. I started to like them too.
Yeah, you put any cookie in front of me, and there's a very good chance that there's 100% chance I'm going to eat it. We got to bounce, Harold. The clock got away from me because the SKC game's up next year on 8/10. Are you on Fox4 tonight, or are you calling us on your night off?
We'll be there tomorrow night, before and after the Dallas-Pittsburgh Hall of Fame game.
Oh, yeah, that's on Fox tomorrow?
Yeah.
There you go, Fox4, Kansas City. What, Beards, what are you doing? Oh, yeah, and it's also here on Sports Radio 810. Watch the first half, listen to the second half, while you go do something else, and then go back for Fox4 with Harold Kuntz. Fox. Harold, thanks. I'm discombobulated. There's a guest on the line, and the music is playing, and Beards has given me no time cues. 10 seconds! I have 10 seconds to wrap up the show. Thanks to Harold Kuntz and also Jordan Foote. We'll talk to you not Thursday, but Friday. Until then, bye, Mom!
You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Listen up, sporting fans. Central Bank of the Midwest invites you to score a better banking experience with our news.